Gandhi's Passion: The Life and Legacy of Mahatma Gandhi by Stanley Wolpert. Chapter 13: The Road Back to Satyagraha. For Gandhi, the call to action proved a tonic. By mid-January of 1929, he resolved to cancel a tentatively planned tour of Europe that would potentially have included a visit to America. Though he had barely had time for sleep in Calcutta, he had lost only 1 pound there. His health was suddenly better than it had been for 7 years, since last he led a national struggle. Work had always agreed with him. Work with the prospect of national liberation, Swaraj, proved to be his best medicine. He drew up a scheme for reactivating the Congress and mobilizing its local committees to serve as volunteers, going from door to door in every town and village, to collect foreign cloth that was to be publicly burnt, and to take orders for hand-woven cloth from every householder. Picketing foreign cloth shops may be undertaken wherever possible. All units should, from day to day, report to the central office details of the work done. Help of patriotic ladies should be enlisted. A small foreign cloth boycott committee should be formed and entrusted with an initial fund with the power to collect more funds. He was in his element, organizing, ordering and auditing all his inherited Vanya merchant caste virtues, brilliantly sparking his Mahatmaic spirit to practical action. Gandhi toured Sindh, collecting money and gathering new disciples for the struggle he would soon lead, which all believed would be the final push to achieve national independence. Even when he learned that his grandson, 17-year-old Rasik Harilal's boy, lay dying in Delhi, he continued to work. Harilal and the boy's mother and his uncle Devdas were at Rasik's bedside for the last painful days and night, but not Gandhi, who was in Larkana when he received the news of his grandson's death. Gandhi recalled after reading Devdas's wire that, "I took my meal as usual and kept on working." His karma yogic indifference to pleasure and pain alike helped sustain him, as did his faith that Rasik's soul, Atma, was liberated to a better state, closer to Lord Rama, whose devotee he, like Gandhi, had been. True Hindu that he was, Gandhi never shed any tears over the death of a loved one, for such grief would only inhibit the soul's release from karmic snares of mortal name and form and the delusions of earthly existence. The cage had become old, was decaying, and the swan flew away. He wrote of Rasik's death, "No cause in this for mourning." While in Delhi in mid-February, Gandhi had tea with the Viceroy at Legislative Assembly Speaker Vithalbhai Patel's house. Of the meeting, Gandhi wrote, "Nothing happened. Our salvation lies in our own hands. A fruitful meeting can only take place when we have gathered strength and become conscious of it." He also met with the Congress Working Committee, including Motilal and Jawaharlal, who were planning the next move, not optimistic enough to expect the British to surrender India without a fight to a Congress Raj at year's end. In early March, he left by train for Calcutta en route to Burma, his party given a third-class carriage all to themselves, making him feel so pampered by authorities that he confessed to fearing he was becoming a fraud. In Calcutta, he addressed a large crowd, urging them to burn all foreign cloth. "I want you to pledge yourselves," he told his receptive audience, "that you will burn them even as you burn rags, even as a drunkard suddenly becomes teetotaler, empties his cupboard and destroys all bottles of brandy and whiskey. You will count no cost too great against the liberty and honor of your country. He was almost back in his stride, broken 7 years ago, when standing on the platform in Shadharand Park, staring down at the ocean of adoring eyes. The Calcutta police, however, served notice against any public bonfires, which made him hesitate to call for the burning of British cloth. For since his first jail term, he was no longer permitted to practice law and was anxious not to provoke any violence. But the police moved in around the distant fringes of the crowd, using their loaded lathis, claiming that hoodlum-tossed brickbats had provoked them. Gandhi was charged with provoking an illegal demonstration, but the commissioner agreed to postpone his trial until Gandhi returned from Burma. He now urged his followers immediately to boycott all foreign cloth, charged as it is with such poisonous germs, removing all of it from Bengal to be consigned to flames. That April, after several Hindu terrorists had thrown bombs into Delhi Assembly and a Muslim assassin had knifed a Sikh to death in Punjab, Gandhi wrote forcefully against such mad deeds. He urged congressmen not to give secret approval to the bombers and Muslims to abstain from supporting the dagger assassin. But then he wisely noted that the bombs and knives really derived their lease of life from the world's belief in violence as a remedy for securing supposed justice. The insensate speed with which the nations of the West are hourly forging new weapons of destruction for purposes of war is suffocating the world with the spirit of violence. The bomb thrower and the assassin will live on as long as public opinion of the world tolerates war. Whenever questioned about his earlier assistance during World War I and the wars in South Africa, Gandhi explained that he no longer felt as he had when he was so much younger and had viewed war in a less negative light. He would never revert to his previous position. War resister, the Reverend B. Daligt asked Gandhi to write more about his attitude towards war. Gandhi responded, "I know that if India comes to her own through non-violent means, India will never want to carry a vast army, an equally grand navy and a grander air force. Such an India may be a mere daydream, a childish folly. But such, in my opinion, is undoubtedly the implication of an India becoming free through non-violence. If India attains freedom by violent means, she will cease to be a country of my pride. That time would be a time for me of civil death. There can therefore never be any question of my participation, direct or indirect, in any war of exploitation by India." During his visit to the Nehrus in Almora, Gandhi and Motilal agreed that Jawaharlal should be the next president of the Congress. Most Congress leaders wanted Gandhi himself, and young Nehru was reluctant to accept the crown of thorns, but Gandhi launched his campaign with a strong article in Young India that August. "I am not keeping pace with the march of events. I must take a back seat and allow the surging wave to pass over me," Gandhi wrote. "In my opinion, the crown must be worn by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. Older men have had their innings. The battle of the future has to be fought by younger men and women." Most senior members of the working committee were not happy at Gandhi's decision not to run, though Gandhi himself had no regrets about yielding to Motilal's insistence that his brilliant son sit on the throne he would vacate before the year's end. Gandhi worked just as hard with or without the crown, still virtually worshipped by millions of Indians as their Mahatma. He continued to enjoy the support of most of the working committee of Congress. That August of 1929, Gandhi journeyed to Bombay to meet with Jinnah, the first of several summits between these two founding fathers of India and Pakistan, seeking a magic formula to resolve communal conflicts that soon tore apart British India. No speculation need take place regarding my meeting Mr. Jinnah, Gandhi reported after they met in Jinnah's grand house atop Malabar Hill. Our conversation was as between friends. I have no representative capacity, but naturally I want to explore all possible avenues to peace. Meanwhile, let those who believe in prayer pray with me that there may be soon peace between Hindus, Muslims, and all other communities. Britain's Tory government had fallen in May, and Labour's Prime Minister Ramsay MacDonald, Jinnah's old friend, moved into 10 Downing Street. Eager to untangle India's constitutional knots, MacDonald called Viceroy Lord Irwin home for consultations with his new Labour Secretary of State for India, William Wedgwood Benn, later Viscount Stanley. Prospects for Dominion status within the year, as resolved by the last Congress, never seemed brighter. Jinnah's first recommendation to the new Prime Minister was for Great Britain to declare, without delay, its unequivocal pledge to a policy of granting to India full responsible government with Dominion status. To implement so important a declaration, he urged his Liberal friend in power to invite those representatives of India who could deliver the goods to a conference in London as quickly as possible. That brilliant advice would have short-circuited the unpopular Simon Commission's glacial labors, and had it been taken swiftly, might have saved India the endless agony of partition, and Great Britain the loss of India's national support throughout World War II. Had Ramsay MacDonald courage enough to accept brilliant barrister Jinnah's astute advice, he would have aborted the Tory Simon Commission and offered India Dominion status, with separate electorate reservations for Muslims, as Jinnah also suggested by way of modifying Motilal Nehru's report before the new year. With the dawn of 1930, then, India's Dominion, united and grateful to its British friends and allies, might well have embarked on an era of economic growth and political independence. But Simon's conservative old guard proved too powerful to be scuttled by a fledgling prime minister who felt he needed their foreign policy support to survive. The compromise reached in London, therefore, was for the new home government to convene a series of round-table conferences to consider the next step for India's constitution, based on the report of the Simon Commission. Since 1917, when Secretary of State Montagu first mentioned it, Dominion status had been the ultimate goal of British policy for India. It remained so in 1929, but the question of just how long it would take before Westminster's Parliament felt her Indian offspring and ward ready for so burdensome a responsibility as freedom remained unanswered. So the golden opportunity was lost, even as Gandhi's meeting with Jinnah proved little more than tea conversation. Resolving nothing, so too did Irwin's meetings with Benn and MacDonald melt none of the ice that kept India locked in Britain's frozen imperial embrace. A few days after his futile meeting with Jinnah, Gandhi's health broke down. His most recent dietary experiment of eating only uncooked vegetables and raw grains exposed him to so persistent a case of dysentery that he felt weaker than he had all year. By mid-August, he was forced to take to his ashram bed in Sabarmati. He gave up on raw food, returning to goat's milk, diluted curds, and fresh fruit juice. The Congress Reception Committee now met in Lahore and by an overwhelming majority chose Gandhi to preside over the Punjab annual session in December. He wired his reply. Whilst thanking you, unable accept your honor. Consider self unfit. Apart from want of energy, am out of tune with many things done, Congressman. Pray elect Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. A month later, he elaborated upon what he called my limitations for presiding over the Congress. I have no faith in the council program. I have no faith in the government schools and colleges. I have still less in the so-called courts of justice. I have no faith in spectacular demonstrations. Whilst I want power for labor and its progressive welfare, I do not believe in its exploitation for a mere political end. I believe in unadulterated non-violence. I believe that unity between Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, Parsis, Jews, Christians, and others is essential for the attainment of Swaraj. I believe the removal of untouchability to be equally essential. I feel that among congressmen, there can only be a microscopic minority going with me in this long recital of credos. I feel that as president of the Congress, I should be a round man in a square hole. Gandhi reiterated all these arguments at the All India Congress Committee meeting in Lucknow in late September, after which the delegates elected Jawaharlal Nehru their next president. I have seldom felt quite so annoyed and humiliated, Jawaharlal recalled of that moment of his anointment. It was not that I was not sensible of honor, but I did not come to it by the main entrance or even a side entrance. I appeared suddenly by a trap door and bewildered the audiences into acceptance. His two patrons, Father Motilal and adopted Bapu Gandhi, had conspired to elevate their son and heir to the Congress throne, but instead of feeling exalted at having achieved the summit on the eve of turning 40, moody Jawaharlal's pride was hurt, and he stole away with a heavy heart. A month after winning the presidency, he tried to resign, crying to dear Bapuji, I feel an interloper and am ill at ease. I must resign. I was a wrong choice. Gandhi's response was brief but firm. About the crown, no one else can wear it. It never was to be a crown of roses. Let it be all thorns. May God give you peace. Jawaharlal did as his Bapu told him about the crown, but like Hamlet, never found peace. Vallabhbhai Patel and his brother Vithalbhai Patel tried their best to reach agreement with Jinnah in order to present a united front of India's political leadership to the Viceroy and accept his invitation to a round-table conference to be convened by the Labour Prime Minister the following year in London. Sardar Vallabhbhai, destined to become India's first deputy prime minister, was as cool-headed as Jawaharlal was mercurial. I sent you a wire after having had a long talk with Mr. Jinnah, he wrote Gandhi, before it is finally decided to close the door upon all future negotiations. Yourself, Jinnah, Motilalji, Vithalbhai and Sapru should confer, or Jinnah and Vithalbhai should be given an opportunity to discuss the matter with you. Vallabhbhai never mentioned Jawaharlal, knowing how dead set he then felt against reaching any agreement with any English leaders that resulted in Dominion status. Jinnah had been assured by the Viceroy that the conference could be summoned next July. A general amnesty declared and an announcement made in London that the purpose of the conference was to frame a scheme for dominion status. It was everything they had so long hoped to achieve. Most of them, both Patels, Motilal Nehru, and all the liberal and moderate leaders of the older generation. Jinnah is quite convinced of the good faith of the Labour government as well as the Viceroy and thinks that this opportunity should on no account be missed. Vallabhbhai wrote in his personal confidential letter to his beloved Bapuji. Gandhi, of course, agreed to the proposed meeting but knew how unhappy and disgruntled Jawaharlal would be if instead of raising his cry of complete independence, Purna Swaraj, in 2 months, as promised at last year's Congress, he would be obliged to restrain his revolutionary frustrations and fury and return to long arduous sessions of negotiations with Jinnah, the Viceroy, and his own father. Had Motilal not insisted on crowning his son, Vallabhbhai instead could have been chosen, and despite his well-known Hindu first reputation and orthodox prejudices, would clearly have been more prone to reach a realpolitik agreement with Jinnah than Marxist-Leninist Shavian Hamlet Jawaharlal ever was or would be. Gandhi responded positively to cables from many English friends, urging him to reciprocate to the new Labour government's overture. He was eager to cooperate and willing to wait for the Dominion status constitution if the British people expressed a real desire to see India a free and self-respecting nation. By that, he meant replacing steel bayonets with goodwill. If India was to remain in the empire, it would only be to make Anglo-India's partnership one for promoting peace and goodwill in the world. Imperialistic greed must end, he insisted. Sarojini Naidu, who adored Jinnah even more than Nehru and Gandhi, wired to Motilal to urge Gandhi to meet him, Jinnah and the Viceroy, for a private interview in Bombay. But Gandhi found it impossible to alter his tour of the United Provinces at this time, unwilling to disappoint tens of thousands of villagers waiting to catch but a glimpse of their Mahatma. One more golden window of opportunity lost. No one at this time imagined, of course, that after this brief interval of sympathetic Labour rule in London, Britain's imperial Raj would revert for over a decade and a half to the steel grip of Tory reactionaries. Having absented himself from England so long, Gandhi misjudged the importance of Labour's first government, downgrading the strong appeals and advice of English friends, and failed to negotiate in 1 week or 1 month what would never again be resolved short of war. Nehru, on the other hand, had more recent first-hand knowledge of England, yet unwisely lumped all liberal Labour leaders of London in the same bourgeois bag of antiquities that his Marxist comrades used for history's dying class. The Viceroy once again suggested meeting with Motilal, Jinnah and Gandhi, who stopped overnight in December's frosty Delhi. No political ice melted in that last-ditch meeting with Lord Irwin, who told them that they still had a chance of doing something big, if only they would accept the great opportunity offered by the Round Table Conference. Jawaharlal, however, had not been invited to the meeting and felt bitter at his exclusion, happy to note that the viceregal summit came to nothing. The Calcutta Congress's year of grace was over. In the early light of a freezing morning in Lahore, Jawaharlal Nehru unfurled India's tricolor, the national flag of Hindustan, and told his Congress comrades it must not be lowered so long as a single Indian lives in India. Congress opted to send no representatives to the forthcoming London conference, and in keeping with their new demand of nothing less than complete independence, they also resolved in Lahore to boycott all legislative assemblies and local bodies. They thus prepared for the resumption of nationwide non-cooperation, with Gandhi empowered to launch a new Satyagraha campaign in the new year. On New Year's Eve, a bomb exploded after the train carrying Lord and Lady Irwin passed over the track, leaving them unscarred. Gandhi moved a resolution deploring that bomb outrage, insisting that so long as Congress's creed remained to attain Swaraj by peaceful and legitimate means, it was imperative for Congress to condemn such violent acts. When asked by a reporter to explain how the present non-cooperation movement differed from the one launched in 1921, Gandhi said that this time the goal was complete independence, whereas before it was only to address Khilafat and Punjab wrongs. Would another Chori Chora event mean calling off the movement again? No suspension need take place by reason of any outside disturbance, he replied. We had burnt our boats and could not go back, Jawaharlal recalled of that freezing dawn in 1930 when he grasped the banner of Congress, raising its battle cry of Purna Swaraj. We believe that it is the inalienable right of the Indian people, as of any other people, to have freedom and to enjoy the fruits of their toil and have the necessities of life. The pledge was taken publicly on January 26, 1930, thereafter celebrated annually as Purna Swaraj Day. Gandhi drafted it and Nehru revised it and led the nation in stating, the British government in India has not only deprived the Indian people of their freedom, but has based itself on the exploitation of the masses and has ruined India economically, politically, culturally, and spiritually. We hold it to be a crime against men and God to submit any longer to the rule that has caused this fourfold disaster to our country. The dangers inherent in so bold a declaration were uppermost in Gandhi's mind, but he had decided that to sit still at this juncture is stupid, if not cowardly. I have made up my mind to run the boldest risks, he confided in Charlie Andrews. Lahore revealed it all to me. The nature of the action is not yet clear to me. It has to be civil disobedience. How it is to be undertaken and by whom besides me, I have not yet seen quite clearly. But the shining cover that overlays the truth is thinning day by day and will presently break. The brilliant plan that would soon emerge from that shining cover was still incubating in his mind. The great march to rob salt from Dandi's beach. Gandhi was encouraged by the peaceful mass turnout of January 26. Throughout India, millions affirmed their faith in the Purna Swaraj pledge, which they hailed. A few days later, he published a list of specific reforms which were required in Britain if Britain would avert civil disobedience. Among those proposals were total prohibition, the reduction of land revenue demands as well as military expenditure by at least 50%, and abolition of the salt tax. Well, might be the point suggested by me. As for immediate attention, raise a storm of indignation in the British press. He wrote a week later, Englishmen must part with some of the ill-gotten gains. Millions had been looted from India by British rule, which he called the personification of violence, comparing the British to paralyzing snakes. Their violence hid behind camouflage and hypocrisy, declarations of good intentions and dishonest conferences designed to mask British greed and deceit. Imperial violence concealed itself under a golden lid, provoking frustrated Indians to violence of the weak. Gandhi warned his followers that they must be on guard to work non-violently in the midst of such double violence. He also alerted them to the ubiquitous presence of indigenous moneyed men, speculators, landholders, and factory owners, all of whom had emerged from and were sustained by British imperial rule. They must be taught to give up their blood-stained gains as soon as they became enlightened enough to see that holding on to millions was a crime. When millions of their own people were starving, freedom would be achieved. But as it drew near, the British would spread their red paws and seek to provoke violence. The British would spread their red paws and seek to provoke violence. The non-violent party must then prove its creed by being ground to powder between the two millstones. Not a very cheerful prospect, but worthy of so compassionate a leader wed to suffering.